Have you ever imagined walking into the heart of an ancient Roman villa, where the floor beneath your feet is more than just stone? It is a story carved in color. Picture this: the soft echo of sandals on marble, the faint scent of olive oil lamps burning nearby, and the gentle light of the afternoon sun streaming through an open courtyard. All around you, artists bend quietly over their work, arranging thousands upon thousands of tiny hand-cut stones into shimmering patterns. Each piece, no bigger than the tip of your finger, is chosen with care. Reds from crushed marble, blues from distant Egyptian glass, and gold leaf so thin it trembles with the slightest breath. This wasn't just decoration. For the Romans, mosaics were a silent language, a way to tell stories, honor their gods, and display wealth without a single spoken word. In this video, we'll slow down, step into their world, and discover the delicate craft, patient artistry, and deep meaning behind these timeless creations. We'll explore who the Mosaicists were, how they transformed simple stones into masterpieces, and why their work has survived for nearly 2,000 years, whispering secrets from an empire long gone. So, take a deep breath, relax, and imagine yourself in the quiet workshop of a Roman artisan, surrounded by color, patience, and history. Imagine yourself stepping quietly into a modest workshop somewhere in the bustling heart of ancient Rome. Perhaps around the year 120 CE, during the height of the empire. Outside, you can hear the distant hum of city life, merchants calling out in the forum, the rhythmic clip-clop of horse hooves on cobblestone streets, and the faint splash of fountains carrying the scent of wet stone. But inside this little workshop, there is silence. A different kind of silence, soft, focused, and patient. The air is warm and faintly dusty, carrying the earthy scent of freshly cut stone, mixed with a hint of beeswax from the oil lamps burning steadily in the corners. A few apprentices kneel on smooth wooden benches, hunched over shallow trays where hundreds of tiny fragments, tesserae, as the Romans called them, are sorted by color and texture. These tesserae are the heart of the craft. Some are carved from limestone and marble. Others are made from colored glass, imported from Alexandria or Syria, shimmering faintly when they catch the light. Each one is no larger than a fingernail, yet each holds a place in a larger vision, a single note in a quiet, visual symphony. At the far end of the room, the master mosaicist works slowly, his calloused hands steady from decades of repetition. He uses a small hammer called a martellina, tapping gently, trimming each tessera with precision until it fits perfectly into place. He says very little. In this world, words are secondary to patience. The apprentices watch, learning by observing, absorbing the unspoken rhythm of the work. Every mosaic begins with a plan. First, a drawing is made, a careful sketch on a wax tablet or parchment. Sometimes it depicts myths from the old stories, Hercules wrestling the Nemean lion, Neptune rising from the sea, or Venus standing upon her shell. Other times, the designs are geometric, flowing spirals, interwoven knots, and endless patterns meant to trick the eye and impress the guest. The floor beneath the master's hands is slowly taking shape. What begins as blank mortar becomes a living painting, where shadows and highlights come not from brushstrokes, but from the delicate placement of stones. Light dances gently across the surface, making the images shimmer as if they were alive. It is slow work, deliberately slow. A single mosaic for a wealthy Roman villa might take weeks, months, or even a full year to complete, yet no one hurries. For the mosaicists, time itself seems to move differently. Each tessera placed is a small act of devotion, to beauty, to precision, to the quiet art of creation. Imagine sitting there, cross-legged on the cool floor, listening to the muted rhythm of tools tapping against stone. You can feel the heat of the day pressing softly against the clay walls, and the stillness is so deep that even your own breathing feels like part of the workshop. It's quiet symphony. Outside, Rome is alive with noise, power, and chaos. But here, in this little room, all that matters is one tiny fragment after another. shaping something eternal. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself standing in the grand atrium of a wealthy Roman villa. The air is cooler here, shaded from the afternoon sun. You can hear the faint sound of a fountain nearby, its soft rippling blending with the distant call of birds outside. Beneath your feet, the floor is alive with color. It's not painted, it's not carved, it's built. Thousands upon thousands of tiny tesserae, carefully fitted together, forming images so vivid they almost seem to move. Roman mosaics weren't just decorations. They were messages, quiet ones, left behind by families who wanted the world to know something about who they were. Every symbol, every figure, every tiny detail was chosen for a reason. Some mosaics told stories from mythology, tales of gods, heroes, and cosmic battles that shaped the Roman worldview. Imagine standing over a scene of Neptune, the god of the sea, rising from foaming waves, his chariot pulled by horses made entirely of white marble chips and pale blue glass. For the wealthy merchant who commissioned it, this wasn't just art. It was a statement, a reminder of his power over the seas, his connection to trade, and his success. Others carried subtler meanings. A simple vine winding its way around the floor might seem decorative at first glance, but to Romans, the vine was a symbol of life, fertility, and eternal renewal. A mosaic of dolphins might not just represent the ocean. It could symbolize safe passage, divine protection, or even spiritual rebirth. Then there were mosaics meant to guide and impress visitors. In a bathhouse, a floor might feature geometric spirals designed to pull the eye inward, creating the illusion of depth. The more complex the design, the more it showed off the wealth and sophistication of the family who owned it. To step inside a home and see a dazzling floor underfoot was to be silently reminded of your host's status. But some mosaics were deeply personal, quiet memorials to family, faith, and memory. In one villa unearthed near Pompeii, archaeologists discovered a floor mosaic depicting a simple loaf of bread, a jar of wine, and a cluster of figs. At first glance, it seems modest, but researchers believe it was meant as a reminder of the family's origins, a story told in food, honoring their ancestors' humble beginnings. What's fascinating is how much these mosaics reveal without words. In an age before photography, before modern storytelling, these artists captured not just what people wanted the world to see, but also what they feared, hoped for, and dreamed of. Imagine walking through a Roman street where even the sidewalks told stories. Taverns had mosaic signs showing drinking cups or wine amphorae. Bakeries displayed mosaic loaves of bread. Gladiator schools used images of helmets and swords to mark their entrances. For the illiterate, and there were many, these artworks were more than decoration. They were the language of the city itself. And still, beneath the beauty, there's something deeper. Roman mosaics remind us of time, the slow, steady patience it takes to build something that lasts. They hold fragments of belief, pride, grief, and identity frozen beneath your feet like whispers from the past. Each tiny tessera is a piece of someone's story. And when you stand above them, you're connected to those who lived, worked, and dreamed 2,000 years ago. Imagine the Roman Empire at its height, a vast, interconnected world stretching from the deserts of North Africa to the cold, misty shores of Britain. Millions of people, hundreds of cultures, and yet, one silent language tied them together: mosaics. Step with me now into this journey. You're no longer in the bustling heart of Rome, but traveling far beyond it, across landscapes and centuries, following the quiet trail of tesserae scattered like stardust across the empire. Our journey begins under the golden North African sun. In the city of Carthage, the soundscape is different. Warmer winds, brighter light, and the soft rustle of olive trees in the distance. Here, mosaicists developed a style unlike anything found in Italy. Instead of muted tones, North African mosaics burst with life and color. Artists used local limestone, ochre, and brilliant blue glass to create floors teeming with detail. Hunting scenes, exotic animals, wild leopards, and graceful gazelles leaping across winding vines. One famous mosaic, known as the Lady of Carthage, captures a woman's face so lifelike that her eyes seem to follow you across the room, even after 17 centuries beneath the earth. These mosaics weren't just decorative. They were portals into the landscapes, myths, and rhythms of daily life unique to this region. You can almost feel the African sun glowing in the stones. From North Africa, imagine sailing east across the calm blue waters of the Mediterranean until you reach Antioch, one of the empire's most cosmopolitan cities. This was where Greek, Roman, Persian, and even Eastern influences blended into something entirely new. Here, mosaic floors became storybooks. Artists developed shaded tesserae, placing tiny glass pieces so precisely that faces appeared soft and three-dimensional, almost like painted portraits. One uncovered masterpiece shows the triumph of Dionysus, the god of wine crowned in ivy, surrounded by dancers frozen mid-step. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the soft notes of a lyre, the faint laughter of guests at a banquet, and the creak of sandals on smooth stone as people walked barefoot across these living canvases. Now picture yourself far away from the warmth of the Mediterranean, standing in the damp chill of Roman Britain. The villa mosaics here are different, simpler, quieter, yet no less meaningful. Local craftsmen, trained by traveling Roman artisans, used materials drawn from the countryside, dark slate, chalky limestone, and clay-red tiles. Instead of elaborate mythological scenes, you often find geometric patterns, winding knots, checkerboards, and spiraling labyrinths designed to bring warmth and elegance to otherwise cold stone floors. One villa in Fishbourne reveals an extraordinary mosaic of dolphins leaping through stylized waves, the deep blues muted but serene, echoing the quiet coasts of southern Britain. Standing there, you can almost hear the soft crash of the channel's tides outside. In Gaul and Hispania, the mosaics bridge Roman influence with local traditions. Some show Roman gods, others celebrate harvests, vineyards, and seasonal festivals unique to Celtic and Iberian cultures. This quiet fusion of artistry tells us something profound about the Roman Empire. Though ruled from Rome, its identity was never singular. Each region added its own brushstroke, its own colors, its own stories. And yet wherever you walked, the sight of mosaics beneath your feet felt familiar. What's remarkable is how seamlessly these styles flowed across thousands of miles without modern communication, without shared languages, and without mass production. Wealthy families, tavern owners, and bathhouse architects alike used mosaics to express identity, status, and belonging. They are silent witnesses, timeless fragments of art scattered like stars across an ancient world. And somehow they all speak to each other, carrying echoes of Roman life from Africa to Britain, from Antioch to Gaul, united by patience, precision, and a quiet devotion to beauty. Take a deep breath and picture yourself kneeling once more on the cool, polished floor of a villa somewhere in the empire. The stones beneath your fingertips may have been set there nearly 2,000 years ago, and yet they still hold the warmth of the hands that placed them. Through these mosaics, we touch not just art, but memory itself. Up until now, we've wandered across grand villas and bathhouses, admiring the brilliance of Roman mosaics. But what about the people who created them? Imagine for a moment the mosaicist himself, a quiet figure, kneeling for hours, maybe days, in a shaded workshop. His hands are rough, marked by small cuts from handling shards of stone and glass, yet his movements are calm, patient, deliberate. He is one of thousands of artisans whose names have been lost to time, and yet, through his work, he whispers across centuries. Mosaicists weren't usually wealthy. In fact, most were freedmen, former slaves who had earned or bought their freedom, skilled enough to turn their artistry into a modest living. Others were ordinary craftsmen, trained in family workshops, passing the knowledge quietly from parent to child, generation to generation. A few were highly respected masters, employed by emperors or senators, creating mosaics for palaces and temples. But most lived modestly, working for local villas, bathhouses, and public halls, where their pay barely matched the hours spent on their knees. Yet even without riches, their art gave them something rare, a quiet kind of immortality. Think about it. Long after emperors rose and fell, after temples crumbled, after entire cities disappeared beneath volcanic ash and shifting earth, the mosaics remain. Tiny stones, carefully placed, still intact after 2,000 years, carrying the fingerprints of hands long turned to dust. Becoming a mosaicist wasn't simple. Apprentices spent years learning, not just cutting stone and shaping tesserae, but understanding proportion, symmetry, and symbolism. An apprentice might spend months sorting tesserae by color and size, their fingertips brushing over hundreds of tiny fragments before they ever placed a single one into wet mortar. They learned the hidden language of mosaics. Why a dolphin represented safe passage, why a vine symbolized rebirth, why placing gold near blue glass could make water shimmer as if it were alive. By the time an apprentice became a journeyman, the rhythm of the work was inside them, a silent melody guiding each placement, each decision. It wasn't just labor, it was meditation. But for all the beauty in their craft, mosaicists often worked under intense pressure. Wealthy patrons, senators, merchants, and priests demanded perfection. A misplaced tessera could mean days of painstaking corrections. Deadlines were strict, especially when entire villas were being prepared for banquets or festivals. Some patrons even dictated themes with precision: gods they wanted honored, victories they wanted immortalized, wealth they wanted displayed. The mosaicists' artistry was always balanced against expectation, politics, and reputation. Imagine the quiet tension in the workshop on the eve of a patron AS inspection, apprentices working through the night by oil lamp. The soft clicking of tools on stone blending with hushed whispers, everyone knowing that one small mistake could cost them their livelihood. Despite this, many mosaicists took pride not in the patrons, but in the work itself. There's evidence that some artisans signed their mosaics discreetly, a tiny name hidden among thousands of tesserae, placed where only a careful eye would ever notice. Others left their signatures more symbolically. A favorite pattern, a distinctive choice of shading, or a particular way of shaping human faces became an unspoken signature, a personal mark hidden in plain sight. For most, though, there was no recognition. No statues were built to honor them. No scrolls recorded their lives. And yet, their art endures quiet and steady, defying time itself. When you stand before one of their creations today, you're touching the past in a way that feels almost intimate. Beneath your feet lies the quiet devotion of someone who believed, or perhaps simply hoped, that beauty could last longer than memory. It's easy to imagine the mosaicist working alone in the early morning, when the world is still, and the soft light of dawn filters into the workshop. There's no rush, no noise, only the sound of a small hammer tapping stone, and the gentle rhythm of breath. Piece by piece, color by color, the design emerges. And maybe, just maybe, this act of creation was as much for the artisan as for the patron. A chance to escape the chaos of Roman streets, the politics, the uncertainty of life in an empire constantly shifting. In the end, mosaics weren't just built for beauty, they were built for eternity, both for those who commissioned them and those who created them. Each fragment carries not just art, but intention. A small reminder that even in a world of power and impermanence, there were quiet hands shaping something meant to last. Take a deep breath and imagine yourself tracing the edge of a Roman mosaic with your fingertips. The stones are cool, polished by centuries, yet their edges are sharp enough to remind you of the human effort behind them. The world above them has changed 1,000 times, and yet the tesserae remain, locked in their silent patterns, carrying echoes of forgotten voices. And so, as we step back from the workshop, leaving behind the gentle rhythm of chisels and the quiet patience of the artisans, we return to the present. But we carry something with us. The mosaics they created are more than fragments of colored stone. They are echoes, soft whispers from the past, still speaking across thousands of years. Each tiny tessera is a frozen moment, a thought, a choice made by someone whose name we may never know, yet whose hands shaped something meant to outlast empires. Imagine standing before one of these ancient floors today, somewhere in the ruins of a Roman villa or deep within a forgotten bathhouse. The world around it has crumbled, the walls have fallen, and the voices have long faded into silence. And yet, beneath your feet, the patterns still shimmer faintly, catching the light just as they did 2,000 years ago. It's almost as if time itself pauses there, holding its breath. When you look closely, you begin to feel a quiet connection. These artisans, who lived and worked so long ago, are not so distant after all. They dreamed, they worked, they hoped, just as we do. And even though their lives have passed into history, their art endures, carrying their presence into our world. There is something deeply comforting in that thought. Empires rise, empires fall, and yet the mosaics remain. The world above them has changed 1,000 times, wars fought, cities abandoned, new generations born and gone. But deep within the stones, a part of the Roman world is still alive. Each curve, each shade, each deliberate pattern carries the rhythm of a life once lived, preserved in silence. And maybe, just maybe, we're not so different from those ancient artisans. We too leave traces of ourselves, in our work, our stories, our creations. Long after our voices are gone, something of us may remain, waiting for someone, far in the future, to pause and listen. As you imagine the mosaicist placing the final tessera into its bed of soft mortar, take a deep breath. Let the thought settle. The gentle weight of history is not heavy, it's soothing. Like a soft tide moving in and out, it carries you backward, slowly, steadily, until the edges of time blur. The workshop grows quiet, the tools rest, the light fades, and in that stillness there is peace. You are lying in your own time, your own place, safe, warm, and calm, yet somehow connected to a world long gone, a world where hands shaped eternity, one tiny stone at a time. So let yourself drift, slowly, into the silence between then and now, into the quiet patience of the mosaicists' work, into the soft hum of forgotten centuries. And as your breathing slows, know that history will hold your dreams gently, just as the tesserae hold their silent patterns beneath the weight of passing ages. Sleep now, and let the echoes of Rome keep you company, steady and eternal, in the quiet of the night.